Hello, my name is Brenna Stanton, and this is my language journey through my own language acquisition and how I use it through teaching. So the first thing is I am monolinguistic. This means that I only speak one language, and the one language I do speak is English. All my life I've wanted to learn another language, but unfortunately all I've been able to do is just speak English. Like I just mentioned, I really wanted to learn another language. My dream when I was younger was to be bilingual, and then once I learned and realized you could learn more than two languages, I wanted to be multilingual. So the first language I started off trying to learn in school was Spanish. I started Spanish as an after-school program when I was 11, and then starting in the 7th grade all the way up until I graduated high school in the first 2 years of college, I continued taking Spanish classes. The next language I learned, or tried to learn, because again I did want to learn more than two languages, was French. So I started French when I was about 16, so I was a sophomore in high school, and I continued that until I graduated high school as well. And even for a very brief period of time, I tried to learn Swahili. Between the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, I had the opportunity to go to Tanzania, and in Tanzania the official language is Swahili, so I tried to learn a few phrases just to help me out as I could get by around the country, and then while I was there I was able to learn a few more phrases. None of these languages have stuck with me. Spanish has been the most one that I've had that I can feel the most comfortable with, but that's just because I've been speaking it the longest. So my own language journey is more like Richard Watson than Alice Kaplan. So in our textbook, Ortega describes these two different types of language learners. So they're adult language learners who are trying to learn, both of them are learning French. Richard Watson and Alice Kaplan both wanted to learn the French language, but they had very different reasons behind it. Richard Watson wanted to do so because he worked with the French culture a lot. He felt that he needed to be able to speak the language, so he was doing so for more of a business, whereas Alice Kaplan wanted to learn French because she loved the culture. She loved it. She had a huge passion for the French language and the French people. What was noticed was that Alice was able to acquire French. She was able to become fluent, while Richard Watson struggled. And while I do have a strong desire to learn another language, and I'm very motivated to do so, I am more like Richard Watson just because I'm not able to acquire the language and become fluent like Alice Kaplan is and other people who can acquire another language differently than I do. This also has to do, similarly, that Ortega described in the book was the self-determination theory. So the motivation that they were self-determined, they were doing it for themselves. So again, Ortega described that as the self-determination theory. I started learning another language when I was older. As I had mentioned, I started learning Spanish when I was 11. So while I'm not as old as the person in this picture, I was older than a toddler or someone just starting in the school age. I was in the 5th grade, so I was ending my elementary years, going into middle school. So it's not very old, but still old enough that there is a bit of a gap. And while we have talked about it throughout this entire semester and throughout the readings we've done, there is some debate on whether age does play an impact on language acquisition. Just from my own experiences, and it might be my own self-fulfilling prophecy, I do see that language is easier to acquire when you're younger. So maybe if I had started speaking another language when I had started elementary school rather than leaving it, I would have been able to acquire it easier. I've also suffered from what the book described as fossilization. So fossilization has nothing to do with the dinosaur in the picture, but it does have to do at a point when someone's trying to learn another language that they become stagnant, that they can only reach a level of fluency or proficiency and they can't go beyond it. So for me with Spanish, I can get to a point where I can understand some of what people are saying. I can sort of read it, but I can't move really beyond where I'm currently at. So how does this affect my teaching? So from my own language experiences, I know that learning a second language, or even a third language is very, very difficult. So as a teacher, having multilingual learners, I can take my own experiences, emphasize with them, and relate to them and help support them because I do know the challenges that they face, at least through my own experiences. So in our textbook, Ortega described a lot of the different theories that Vygotsky had. So Vygotsky is a philosopher. He had to do with both education and language acquisition. And his big thing about language acquisition is that it's a process, not a product. So language isn't just you get to an end and you're done. Language is something that you continue to learn. You're always learning, you're always getting better and improving. You don't stop. So recognizing that with my students, to have this realization that there isn't an end that they're going to meet, that they're going to keep getting better, and it's okay to not be the best yet because they will get better every day, and every time they practice the language. It also will help me with using a different variety of methods to support my ELLs or multilingual learners. Through this picture that you can see here, this person is learning English and another language. I had the opportunity to teach through VipKid, where I was able to teach online. So I did learn a bunch of different strategies to help students, such as using more visuals and moving my body, and doing different comprehension checks and making sure they understand yes/no questions, asking vocabulary. And then helping with their interlinear identification, which Ortega describes as recognizing that your language has something in common with another language and bridging the similarities between the two. And then also recognizing the value of translanguaging. So translanguaging is kind of a more recent term, and it's has to do with recognizing a student's home language and the language that they choose to use in school, and instead of keeping them two separate entities, that translanguaging, recognizing that all of their vocabulary that they have can come together and they can use that to help them in school. Rather than seeing it as a deficit, we can see it as an asset. And this has to do with improving the language gap. So the language gap has to do with the fact that typically multilingual learners are considered to have less vocabulary than their monolingual peers, and that's not because they don't know what to do in school, it's because they don't have the language to complete the task. So as was described by Flores in his article and through his videos, that if you ask a multilingual learner to inference something in their own language, they can inference. It's something that they know how to do. They can make predictions. But if you asked them what a prediction was and they don't know what that is, then they would struggle with that. But it doesn't mean that they do not have the skill. So combining all of these things together, my own experiences with my goals, I do hope that I can make the connection and help my students to improve in school and help them to realize that I can see that they're trying very hard and that learning another language is very, very tricky. And like I said, use these experiences to help all of my students learn. Alright, so that's my video. Thank you!